Is it possible that the things we cling to most, our families, our bank accounts, even the institution of marriage itself, are actually the very things keeping us from being truly free?
That is a provocative question.
I know, right? We think of these things as the bedrock of a stable life, a safety net.
Mhm.
But what if that safety is actually a cage?
It's a radical way to look at the world, for sure. It flips the script entirely. But today, we are exploring a philosophy that argues exactly that.
We are. We're doing a deep dive into a series of essays by a writer named Xuefeng.
And this collection, it creates a really comprehensive and, frankly, pretty intense roadmap for life. It covers everything.
Everything from the basics of how to be a human, or Zoran.
All the way to a very specific structural plan he calls the road to freedom.
And when we say comprehensive, we are not kidding. This isn't just, be nice to your neighbors or...
Right, or recycle your plastics, no.
Exactly. This is a mix of incredibly strict personal ethics, like down to the detail of your daily behavior.
And that's combined with a spiritual worldview that, in the end, calls for a complete rejection of societal norms.
It's wild. I mean, on one hand, you have advice on how not to be a demon or an animal.
And on the other, a guide to dismantling the state and the family unit.
It's such a fascinating juxtaposition. You really don't see those two things together.
You don't. The source material, it acts as a guide for navigating what Xuefeng calls a chaotic world, for maintaining one's dignity, and ultimately aligning oneself with what the text refers to as the greatest creator.
So yeah, a lot to unpack. We're going to look at these specific rules, this concept of the wordless book, which I absolutely love, and then finally this controversial idea of the second home.
Right. But before we get to the commune living and the end of money, we have to start with the foundation.
The essays on being a human.
Exactly. And the context here is vital. If you don't get the context, the rules just seem random and strict. Xuefeng describes our current era as a time where fishes and dragons are mixed together.
I love that phrase, fishes and dragons mixed together. It feels so cinematic.
It really paints a picture of total chaos, doesn't it? A time where you can't tell the noble from the corrupt. The argument is that when the environment is that turbulent, like a massive storm, the only things that survive are the ones with deep roots.
So you have to strictly adhere to the benefit.
The duty of being human, otherwise you're just drifting debris.
And I think it's important to clarify the goal here. He says explicitly, it's not about being a good person to get praise or get rich.
Right. It's not social climbing.
No. It's about the survival of the soul. It's about living with dignity so you don't end up living like a, quote, ghost, demon, monster, or animal.
It's almost like spiritual hygiene.
That's a great way to put it. Existential hygiene. And he provides 28 basic rules.
And what stands out to me is how incredibly specific they are. These aren't just abstract principles.
Let's look at the first one because it really sets the tone. Trust. The source says, never break a promise.
And it isn't just try your best. It says if you break a promise once, your life is basically ruined.
Right.
It's the #1 requirement. It treats credibility like a glass vase. Once it's shattered, you can't just glue it back together.
That's terrifyingly strict. But then look at rule number 2, gratitude. We expect the usual suspects. Be grateful to parents, teachers.
But there's a specific addition in there that I think stops everyone in their tracks.
I know exactly which one you mean. It says you must be grateful to the opposite sex with whom you have had sexual life.
Yeah.
That is so specific. And honestly, it's a bit of a curveball compared to how we usually talk about ex-partners.
It really is. It frames intimacy as a form of grace received, no matter how the relationship ended. It says you must treat them with absolute respect.
No bad-mouthing exes. No bitterness. Which is a refreshing take compared to, modern dating culture.
Precisely. And that theme of sacred boundaries continues with the privacy rule. This one feels so relevant today.
Do not peek.
Absolute prohibition. No looking at phones, no reading letters, no entering a bedroom without permission.
It sounds simple, but how many people actually stick to that 100%?
The source treats privacy as a boundary of the soul. If you're snooping through your partner's texts, you're not just annoying them.
You're degrading your own dignity.
Exactly. You're lowering yourself.
There's also that interesting rule about social conduct, specifically with relatives and the government.
Oh, yeah. Do not voluntarily expose the crimes of close relatives to the government.
That feels like it runs counter to a lot of Western ideas of civic duty.
It does. It prioritizes the organic bond of kinship over the artificial construct of the state's law. It suggests that betraying blood for the state damages your humanity.
It's basically don't be a snitch as a spiritual commandment. And the stakes are high. Following these rules isn't just about having a polite life.
No, it's the foundation for eventually becoming an immortal or going to heaven.
So that's step one. But that's just a behavioral baseline, right? If you just follow rules, you're a well-behaved robot.
Right. And this is where it gets really philosophical. How do we know what is true? Which brings us to the Wordless book.
This part made me laugh a little. The source basically calls most human knowledge garbage.
It's a harsh critique, for sure.
Yes.
It argues that sociology, history, political science, they're all distorted. They're short-sighted explanations written by biased humans,
So if you want the truth, you have to read the only book that doesn't lie.
which is nature itself, the sky, the earth, the wind, biology.
And this is the crucial connection.
Yes. The source explicitly states that reading this wordless book is how you communicate directly with the greatest creator.
So you don't listen to a priest. You don't read scripture written by humans.
You observe the natural world to understand the will of the greatest creator.
So if a priest tells you one thing, but a tree tells you another, you listen to the tree.
Essentially, yes. This leads to a heavy dose of skepticism towards human authority. Trust nature, question humanity.
And that extends to judgment too, right? Because if human knowledge is garbage, then our judgment must be flawed.
Exactly. One of the key rules is do not judge others. Do not label people. The source says only the divine or the Tao can judge.
It's almost a self-preservation tactic. In a chaotic world, the person being attacked by the mob might be the noble one. So the safest bet is just to zip it.
And that respect for life extends beyond humans. The text specifically mentions respecting snakes, turtles, and cranes.
Why those three? Is there a cultural code there?
There is. In many Eastern traditions, they're symbols of longevity and spirituality. But beyond that, it's about respecting all life forms created by the greatest creator. But there's another concept in this section that's a really hard pill to swallow for a modern audience.
Renming. Accepting fate.
Yeah.
This one stopped me cold. Because we're raised on, you can be anything you want to be.
And here, the source says your life trajectory is fixed at birth. A rose is a rose, a pine tree is a pine tree. And trying to fight that is a recipe for disaster.
It completely challenges the self-made man narrative.
It says accepting your fate leads to happiness and alignment with the greatest creator, while fighting it leads to misery.
But isn't that incredibly disempowering? If I'm born a blade of grass, am I just supposed to give up on ambition?
Well, wait, because this is the nuance. In the very next section, the source talks about creativity and spontaneity. You accept the category of your existence. You're a rose. Don't try to be a pine tree. But within that existence, you must bloom. You have to create.
Ah, okay. So be the best rose you can be, but don't stress yourself out trying to grow pine cones.
Exactly. And this leads to Xuefeng following one's nature. And the source says true spontaneity isn't about buying a villa or having servants. That's just vanity.
So what is it?
It's being able to sing in the street at midnight if you feel like it, or walking naked if you choose.
Which, let's be honest, will get you arrested in most places.
And that is exactly the problem he points out. He says following your inner nature makes you a Buddha or an immortal. But, and this is the catch.
It's nearly impossible in normal society.
Right, you have obligations. You have the law. You have what will the neighbors think.
So this sets up the central conflict perfectly. We have these strict rules, this connection to the greatest creator through nature, and this desire to be free.
But society itself, the way we've built our world, prevents us from actually living that way. The structure of our civilization is the bottleneck.
And that leads us to the final and most radical part of these writings.
Your road to freedom.
This is where we go from personal self-help to let's redesign civilization. The source says the ultimate goal of life is physical and mental freedom.
But it claims that basically no one, not presidents, not billionaires, is truly free.
Because they're all bound by what Xuefeng calls the 8 barriers.
A list. This is the checklist of what's holding us back.
Okay, let's run through it. State, money, marriage, family, kinship, government, debt, and ego.
It's a comprehensive list of everything that structures our current reality.
And as long as you're tied to any of these, you aren't free.
I think for most listeners, seeing marriage and family on that list is going to be shocking, maybe even offensive.
Absolutely. These are the things we say give life meaning. I do it all for my family.
And the source acknowledges that paradox. It says most people can't imagine life without them, but Xuefeng argues they're also the ropes. Marriage creates possession and exclusivity. Family creates a narrow us versus them mentality. Debt creates servitude.
It's a heavy critique. It's basically saying our love is too small. It's boxed in. So what's the alternative? If we get rid of all that,
Right.
aren't we just alone?
No, and this is important. He's not advocating for isolation. He's advocating for a different kind of connection. He proposes a communal model called the second home.
Okay, paint the picture for us. What does that actually look like?
Imagine a community with no marriage. Relationships exist, but they're not contracts of possession. There's no private money. Resources are shared. Everyone works for the community, not a paycheck.
It's a collective designed to maximize freedom by minimizing individual burdens.
And the source claims this isn't just a theory. It says this model has been tested for 13 years.
Right, it mentions tests in Africa, America, and the Konohana family in Japan.
The claim is that by removing the anxiety of my money, my spouse, my legacy, you remove the root causes of human suffering.
You become free to follow that wordless book, to align with the greatest creator.
It's a rip-the-Band-Aid-off approach to enlightenment. Instead of trying to find peace within a stressful job, just eliminate the job.
And the source is very confident about this. It says it's the only path.
It suggests that while it seems impossible to us now, just like ending foot binding seemed impossible in the past, civilization is evolving away from these structures.
That comparison to foot binding really stuck with me. We look back at that now and think, how did they do that to themselves for centuries? It's torture.
And Xuefeng is suggesting that in 500 years, people might look back at the nuclear family and the 30-year marriage and say the same thing. How did they live like that?
So if we zoom out, the whole philosophy is a journey. You start by cleaning up your own act with strict personal rules. The Benfen.
Then you pivot your attention from human society to nature, the wordless book, to understand the greatest creator.
And finally, you realize that to fully live that way, you have to opt out of the traditional structures entirely and move toward this second home.
It's a progression from internal discipline to external liberation. It asks a lot of you.
It certainly makes you look at your daily routine differently. I mean, I'm going to go home and wonder if I'm living according to my nature or just a script.
And I'm sure, looking at a mortgage statement, that no debt idea has a certain allure.
It really does. But that's the value of engaging with a philosophy this distinct, right? Even if you don't pack your bags for a second home.
It forces you to question why you live the way you do. Is it because it aligns with your spirit, or because it's just what everyone else does?
Which brings us to our final thought. The source argues that to find freedom, we must dismantle the structures we think keep us safe. It claims the wordless book of nature is the only truth. So here's the question for you to mull over. If nature is the ultimate standard, are our most cherished social institutions actually unnatural? Are we domesticating ourselves into misery?
A heavy question, but one worth asking.
Indeed. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Xuefeng. It has been a fascinating trip.
Thank you. Keep reading the wordless book.
See you next time.